A billionaire prince with everything money could buy. Palaces, yachts, and riches beyond imagination, felt a void no wealth could fill. Tired of women chasing his fortune instead of his heart, he left his palace behind and disguised himself as a humble fisherman in a quiet coastal village. There, far from luxury and pretense, he hoped to find a love that was real, but he never imagined how one remarkable woman would challenge him, awaken his heart, and change his life forever. Like and subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter. Nightfall draped the kingdom of Amans in shimmering silver as lanterns flickered across the palace courtyard. The royal walls rose high and mighty, carved with ancient symbols of strength, power, and legacy. But inside those mighty walls stood a man who felt incredibly small. Prince Kelechi Obi, heir to the royal throne, gazed at his reflection in the polished bronze mirror. The crown on the table beside him glittered, but tonight it felt heavier than any chain. He ran a hand through his thick black hair and whispered, "Is this the life I truly want?" Outside, the palace buzzed with preparations for a grand event, another royal gathering arranged by the Queen Mother. Another night of artificial smiles, forced conversations, and women who only saw him as a stepping stone to influence. From the open balcony, he could hear the distant musicians already tuning their drums. His personal guard Madhu stepped forward. "My prince, the queen requests your presence. The noble families have arrived." Kelechi sighed. "Must I attend? Tonight of all nights?" "Your mother insists," Madhu replied gently. "They say, this may be the night you choose a bride." Kelechi closed his eyes in disbelief. Another attempt to marry him off. Another opportunity for the world to judge him, not by his heart, not by his dreams, but by his duty. He stepped out onto the balcony, letting the cool sea breeze brush against him. From this height, he could see the distant ocean, calm, peaceful, free. Waves rising and falling without rules. Unlike his life, which was bound by royal expectations. His voice softened. "Madhu, do you think someone like me can ever be loved for who I am? Without the crown?" The guard hesitated. "My prince, every heart desires genuine love. But it is rare. Very rare for someone in your position." Kelechi nodded slowly. Hard. Almost impossible." The evening celebration began. Royal guests filled the hall, women in shimmering gowns, nobles trying to catch his attention, girls giggling behind embroidered fans. He walked among them with a practiced smile. But inside he felt hollow. A young woman approached with exaggerated grace. "My prince, I baked you this special cake," she cooed, pushing an expensive-looking box into his hands. Another woman stepped forward, batting her eyelashes. "Do you like my new dress? I chose royal colors. Only for you." A third whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I heard the prince is looking for a future queen. I am ready." He smiled politely while his heart sighed. He wanted love, not performance. As he moved, he overheard a conversation between two ladies. "Do you think he will choose a bride tonight?" "I don't care who he chooses, as long as he chooses me." Can you imagine the fortune? The influence? I heard he owns 7 properties overseas. Marriage to him is like winning a lifetime of blessings. None of them mentioned whether he was kind, whether he was good, whether he was gentle, whether he was happy. To them he was a walking treasure chest. The final straw came when an elder approached him with a broad grin. "Prince Kelechi, I present my daughter Onyema," he announced proudly. "She is well-trained, obedient, and eager to serve royalty." Behind him stood a richly dressed young woman who tried too hard to look perfect. Kelechi felt trapped. He excused himself quietly and left the hall. His steps carried him through the palace corridors until he reached the private garden where he often went to breathe. The moon shone brightly over the royal pond. The flowers swayed softly. And in that peaceful silence, he finally admitted the truth he had buried for years. "I can't do this anymore." He wanted freedom. He wanted authenticity. He wanted love that wasn't bought or calculated. As the wind rustled the palm leaves, an idea took root in his heart, a wild idea that sparked with life. What if he left? What if he stepped outside the palace walls? What if he lived as an ordinary man, just for a while? No guards, no crown, no expectations, just Kelechi, not Prince Kelechi. For the first time in years, he felt a breath of liberation sweep through him. He turned to Madhu, who had quietly followed him. "My prince," Madhu whispered, "you look troubled." Kelechi inhaled deeply. "Madhu, I'm leaving the palace." The guard froze. "My prince, where will you go?" "To the coast. To the fishing villages," Kelechi replied with conviction. "Far from this golden prison. I want to live as a fisherman, and find someone who will love me without knowing who I am." Madhu's eyes widened. "That is dangerous. What if people find out?" "They won't," Kelechi assured. "I will go as a common man. No fancy clothes, no jewels, no guards. Just me." The guards struggled for words. "But, the kingdom needs you." Kelechi shook his head. "The kingdom will be fine for a short while. I need to find myself before I can ever hope to lead others." Then he added softly, "Please, Madhu, keep my secret." With a conflicted sigh, the guard bowed. "As you wish, my prince." Before dawn, Kelechi packed a simple bag, plain shirts, rough fisherman trousers, and a straw hat to shield him from the sun. He removed every trace of royalty, rings, chains, crested robes. He paused as he picked up the crown, not with pride, not with regret, but with gratitude. He placed it gently back on the table. Then, with the moon guiding him, he slipped out through the hidden coastal gate behind the palace. His footsteps were steady. His heart was light, his spirit free. As he walked toward the sleeping horizon, he whispered, "If love still exists in this world, let it find me in my simplest form." He didn't know that fate had already begun weaving his path. And waiting at the edge of that quiet fishing village was a woman whose heart beat like an echo to his own. A woman whose destiny was tied to his. Even though she knew nothing of the prince disguised as a fisherman. Her name was Amara, and she would change everything. The next morning came with a gentle hum of the ocean, soft waves brushing the sand, the distant call of fishermen readying their canoes, and the fresh smell of dawn. For the first time in years, Prince Kelechi awoke not to the rustle of palace curtains or the voices of attendants, but to the simple peace of the sea. His back still ached from sleeping on the wooden cot that the fisherman called a bed, but he smiled. This, he told himself, is how ordinary people live. But nothing about this morning would remain ordinary. She appeared like a sunrise. As Kelechi tightened the rope on one of the canoes, he noticed movement down the shore. A woman was walking toward the water, balancing a clay pot effortlessly on her head. Her steps were soft, graceful, almost musical. Her wrapper flowed with the wind, and the early sun lit her skin with a warm glow. She did not see Kelechi at first. She was humming a gentle tune as she bent to gather water. But the moment she lifted her head, their eyes met, and everything stilled. Kelechi felt something he had not felt in a long time. Something that didn't bow to wealth, power, or title. Curiosity, warmth, pull he could not explain. The girl blinked, startled. She quickly turned away, hugging her clay pot to her chest. "Good morning," Kelechi said gently, trying not to scare her. She hesitated, then answered quietly, "Good morning, fisherman." Her voice was soft, but there was a firmness behind it, as though she was used to carrying both strength and gentleness inside her. Kelechi smiled. He had been called many names, "Your Highness, Son of the Throne, Great Prince of the East," but never just fisherman. For some strange reason, he liked it. The mysterious girl. The girl tried to step away, but her pot slipped slightly. Without thinking, Kelechi reached out and steadied it with his hand. He froze. Their hands touched for less than a second, but she quickly stepped back. "Thank you," she whispered. "My name is Obioma," she added with a hint of shyness. "I live there beyond the palm trees." "A beautiful name," Kelechi replied. "It means good heart, doesn't it?" She looked surprised. Most fishermen didn't speak like that. But she didn't question him, not yet. "And you?" she asked. He hesitated only a second. "Kelechi," he answered simply. A shortened, safer version of his real name. She nodded politely, then began to walk away. But halfway up the shore she stopped, turned slightly, and gave him a small smile. A smile that seemed to say, "I don't know who you are yet, but maybe I want to." A distraction he welcomed. For the rest of the day, Kelechi found himself distracted. The other fishermen laughed as he nearly tied the net to his own foot. One slapped him on the back and said, "Kelechi, are you sure you slept well? Your head is in the clouds today." He wanted to deny it. But how could he? Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. Her smile. The way she walked in the morning light. Bioma. The girl with the gentle voice. The girl who called him Fisherman without knowing the truth behind his disguise. Village whispers. As dusk approached, Kelechi overheard two women talking near the palm grove. "Obioma has refused every suitor," one said. "That girl is too careful. Love scares her." "I don't blame her," the other replied. "Her mother always said, a woman must look deeper than the surface." Kelechi's heart tightened. So she was not someone who fell easily. Not someone who could be impressed with sweet talk or a handsome face. She looked deeper. But I cannot let her look too deep, he thought. Not unless he was ready to reveal everything. A promise to himself. That night, as the moon reflected over the sea, Kelechi sat on the canoe pier and whispered to himself, "I did not leave my palace for nothing. I came to find truth. And maybe I have found the beginning of it." But one question troubled him. Would Obioma still smile at him if she knew he was a prince? He wasn't ready to find out. Not yet. But one thing was certain. Tomorrow he would return to the shore. Not for fish. Not for the tide. But for her. For Obioma. The next morning arrived with a restless breeze. The waves crashed harder, the birds circled lower, and the air carried the scent of rain that had not yet fallen. Prince Kelechi, still wearing the rough clothes of a fisherman, stepped out of the small hut he shared with the other men. He had not slept well. Not because the wooden bed was uncomfortable, but because only one thought circled his mind. Would she come again? Amara. The girl who greeted the ocean at dawn. The girl whose smile he kept replaying in his mind even when he tried not to. He picked up a fishing net and slung it over his shoulder, pretending to be focused on work. But he wasn't heading toward the boats. He was heading toward her shoreline. "You came early today." She was already there. This time she was sitting on a smooth rock, her feet brushing the water's edge, her clay pot beside her. Her hair was loosely tied, and the morning sun painted her face with a gentle glow. Kelechi stopped walking. For a moment, he simply watched her, amazed by how peaceful she looked, like she belonged to the ocean itself. Then she turned, and she smiled. "You came early today," she said softly. He laughed under his breath. "It seems we both did." Amara looked away shyly, drawing circles in the sand with her toe. "Maybe," she murmured, "the ocean called to both of us." She didn't realize the ocean was not what called to him. It was her. Talking like old friends. They sat beside each other, still with a small space between them, still shy, still unsure of how close to get. But the conversation flowed as naturally as the waves around their feet. She asked him about fishing, and he explained it with surprising confidence. He had learned faster than he expected. He asked her about the village, and she told him stories that made him laugh, smile, and sometimes fall silent with thought. For once, Kelechi wasn't pretending. He wasn't Prince Kelechi of the Golden Palace. He was Kelechi, simple man. A man she could talk to freely. A man she did not have to bow to. a man she might actually trust. But then, a shadow over her eyes. But halfway through their talk, her smile faltered. Just for a second. Amara, Kelechi said gently. What troubles you? She hesitated. Then she sighed. People think I am too difficult, she said. That I say no to every man who comes my way. And is that true? He asked softly. She looked at him. Her eyes were calm but layered with something deeper, something painful. No, she whispered. I only say no to men who want my beauty but not my heart. Kelechi felt the words like a weight in his chest. I don't want a man who hides behind sweet words. I want honesty. I want kindness. I want someone who sees me, not what he can take from me. Her eyes lifted to his. Do you understand? He swallowed. He wanted to answer yes. He wanted to tell her how deeply he understood. He wanted to confess that he too lived in a world where people only saw his crown, his wealth, his power, but not him. But he couldn't. Telling her the truth now would ruin everything. So he said the only thing he could. I understand more than you think. A warning from the hills. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by heavy footsteps. 4 young men, the village hunters, were walking past with bows on their backs. One of them narrowed his eyes at Kelechi. Tread carefully, Fisherman, he said. That girl is not one you can easily impress. Amara looked embarrassed. Kelechi tried not to react, but the hunter stepped closer. I know your type, he hissed. Strangers who come with smooth words. Don't think we are blind. I said nothing wrong, Kelechi replied calmly. That is what worries me, the hunter said, glaring. You talk like someone who is hiding something. Amara stood up sharply. That is enough, Equim, she snapped. Equim scoffed, shook his head, and walked away with the others. But his warning lingered in the air like the smell of smoke. After they left, Amara's voice softened again. I am sorry. Some people here do not trust strangers easily. Kelechi nodded. It's fine. I don't expect to be welcomed immediately. But inside the warning cut deep. He was hiding something. Something bigger than the hunter could ever imagine. If the village reacted this strongly to whispers of secrecy, how would they react if they knew he was a billionaire prince? Would they reject him? Would they fear him? Or worst of all, would they suddenly pretend to love him? His greatest fear returned, cold and heavy. If Amara discovers the truth, will she walk away from me forever? Yet she stayed. She sat beside him again, closer this time. So, she asked softly, will you still come to the shore tomorrow? His heart warmed. Yes, he said. As long as you are here. She pretended not to react, but a shy smile tugged at her lips. The waves brushed their feet. The wind lifted her hair. Something beautiful, fragile but growing, stirred between them. But destiny has a way of testing every heart. And for Kelechi and Amara, the test was coming sooner than they expected. Days passed. And with each sunrise, Kelechi found himself drifting toward the shore. Not for the ocean. Not for fishing lessons. But for Amara. Their bond deepened quietly, like roots growing beneath the earth, unseen but strong. They walked the shoreline together. They laughed until their stomachs hurt. They shared roasted fish under the palm trees. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they simply sat in silence, watching the waves. To the village it looked innocent. To Kelechi it felt like home. But the village was watching. And gossip spreads faster than wind. The women at the stream began to whisper. One morning, as Amara fetched water at the stream, she overheard 2 women whispering behind her. That stranger again, one murmured. Amara is getting too close. The other replied. You think she has forgotten Equim? He has liked her for years. Amara pretended not to hear, but the words stung her. She had never promised Equim anything. He was the one who kept pursuing her, even when she made her boundaries clear. But still, the whispers made her uneasy. Because deep inside, she knew they were right about one thing. She was getting close to the stranger. Too close. Meanwhile, a letter from the palace. Back in Kelechi's hut, the oldest fisherman barged in holding a sealed envelope. Amara, he called. This came for you. Kelechi froze. Nobody knew him in the village. Nobody, except the palace. With steady fingers he broke the seal. The letter was short. Your father is sick. The council demands your return. The king has been calling your name. His chest tightened. The king, his father, had been ill for years, but this sounded urgent, desperate. He folded the letter and slipped it beneath his clothes. Not now. He couldn't go now. Not when Amara was finally beginning to trust him. Not when his heart was involved more deeply than he expected. Not when he had just begun to feel like a normal man. But the truth always arrives, whether invited or not. Amara seized the letter. That evening they walked together along the beach, the sunset casting gold across the water. Amara was telling a story about her childhood, how she used to chase crabs and how one once pinched her finger, when the wind suddenly blew hard. She laughed, shielding her face. Kelechi tried to steady his clothes, but the wind lifted the edge of his wrapper and the letter fell out. Amara bent to pick it up. He rushed toward her. Wait! But her eyes had already read the seal. The royal palace of Izudai kingdom. Her breath caught. Her hands trembled. She looked up at him, confusion swirling in her eyes. Kelechi, why do you have a letter from the palace? She whispered. He said nothing. The waves crashed. The wind howled. Amara stepped back. Who are you? The truth begins to crack open. Kelechi, he said softly. I can explain. She shook her head slowly. Explain what? She asked, voice breaking. That you are not who you said you were. That you came here with secrets. He took a step closer. She took another step back. Please, he said. Just listen. How many lies have you told me? She asked in a whisper so sharp it felt like a blade. None, he answered immediately. I only hid one truth. But a hidden truth is a lie, she said, tears forming. Those tears pierced him deeper than any spear. Why did you come here? Her voice cracked. Tell me, Amara, if that's even your name. She swallowed. Why did you come to this village? To find peace, he whispered. To run away, she asked. Yes, he admitted. To escape people who only saw my wealth, not my heart. She stared at him, hurt and trembling. And what did you see when you looked at me? He stepped toward her. Everything I ever wished for. Her breath hitched, but she held the pain in her eyes. Then why didn't you trust me with the truth? He opened his mouth, but no words came. 'Cause she was right. He should have told her. Not now. Not after she found out. Not because of a blown letter. But the day she first smiled at him. Akeem arrives. And the lies explode. Amara! Akeem stormed onto the beach with 2 other hunters behind him. He glared at Kelechi. I knew it. This stranger, this fisherman, has secrets. Amara wiped her eyes. Kelechi clenched his fists. Akeem snatched the letter from her hand and read the royal seal. Aha! Look at this. He is connected to the palace. Maybe he's a thief. Or a spy. Villagers nearby began gathering. The whispers grew louder. Who is he? Why hide such a thing? Is he dangerous? Did he deceive Amara? Enough! Kelechi finally shouted. His voice boomed louder than any wave. Everyone fell silent. He stepped forward. His face darkened, not with anger but with truth long buried. I am not a fisherman, he said. My name is Prince Kelechi Okiri, heir to the Golden Palace. Gasps erupted. Amara froze. Akeem stumbled backward. The whole village trembled with shock. But Amara. She felt only one thing. Betrayal. Not because he was a prince. Not because he had wealth. Not because he came from a world of luxury. But because he didn't trust her enough to tell her. She took a long breath, her voice shaking. So everything we shared. She pointed at her chest. At my heart. Her voice cracked. Was built on a disguise. Kelechi. No, she whispered, her voice breaking fully. Please, don't say anything. He turned away. Each step she took felt like it tore a piece of him away. By the time she disappeared behind the palm trees, Kelechi felt emptier than he ever had in his life, even when surrounded by the wealth of a kingdom. And then, the final blow. A messenger from the palace appeared on the beach. He bowed deeply. Your Highness, he said, loud enough for the whole village to hear. The king is on his deathbed. You must return at once. The villagers gasped again. Some knelt. Some whispered prayers. Some stared at Kelechi in awe. But Kelechi. He felt nothing but the sound of Amara walking away echoing in his heart. He had found love. And he had lost it in the same breath. The palace bells tolled long before Kelechi returned. By the time he arrived, the guards bowed so deeply their foreheads nearly touched the ground. Servants rushed forward to take his bags. The royal council lined in 2 rows, murmuring, "The prince has returned. Finally, the heir is home. He must take the throne." But Kelechi walked past all of them, straight to his father's chamber. A king's final words. The king lay weakly on his royal bed, surrounded by lanterns that flickered like tired fireflies. His once powerful frame was now thin, his breath shallow. But when he saw Kelechi, he smiled. "My son." Kelechi went to his knees beside him. "Father, I came as soon as I heard." The king reached for his hand, gripping it tightly despite his weakness. "They told me you left the palace," the king whispered. "You lived as a fisherman." Kelechi nodded. "Yes, father. I needed to see the world without the walls of royalty." The king's eyes softened. "And did you find what you were looking for?" Kelechi's voice dropped. "I found love, father. But I also lost it. Because I was afraid to tell the truth." The king gave a weak chuckle. "Ah. Even a prince cannot escape matters of the heart." There was a pause. Then the king lifted his other hand with effort. "Take this wisdom from a dying man," he whispered. "A kingdom built on power will crumble. But a kingdom built on truth and love will stand for generations." Kelechi felt his chest tighten, tears burning behind his eyes. "Father, go back to her," the king whispered. "Go, before it is too late." Those were his final words. Just before sunrise, the king of Izudi Kingdom breathed his last. The weight of a crown. The royal horns blew across the entire kingdom. Villagers, nobles, and distant chiefs gathered. Messages were sent to neighboring lands. A new king was needed. All eyes turned to Kelechi. Tradition demanded he be crowned immediately. But Kelechi stood before the council and raised his hand. "Before I take the throne," he said, "I must finish something my heart began." The council exchanged confused glances. "Your Highness," one elder protested. "The kingdom needs a ruler." "Yes," Kelechi replied gently. "But a king without truth is only a man wearing gold." And so he walked away from the throne room. Prince, future king, a man determined to win back the only heart that ever mattered. Back in the village. Broken trust. Meanwhile, Amara had shut her door to the world. She didn't go to the stream. She didn't visit the market. She didn't speak to anyone, not even her closest friend Nkem. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him. Amara. The fisherman who smiled with humble sweetness. The prince who lied with gentle eyes. She wasn't angry about his royalty. She wasn't intimidated by his wealth. What hurt her was simple. Why didn't he trust me? That single question echoed in her heart like the cry of a lonely bird. When a king came for a village girl. On the 7th day, just as she sat on her bed staring at her calabash of water, she heard commotion outside. Voices. A step. She rushed to her doorway and froze. Kelechi was standing in the center of the village square. Not in fisherman clothes. not as the anonymous stranger she once knew, but as a prince. A long royal robe draped over him like sunlight on water. Gold embroidery glimmered against deep blue fabric. His crown rested lightly on his head, not the full coronation crown, but a prince's cap, simple yet regal. Behind him stood palace guards and elders. The entire village had gathered around him. Children whispered. Women covered their mouths in astonishment. Men bowed reluctantly. But Kelechi had eyes for only one person. Amara. He took a step toward her. She froze. He took another. Her heart pounded painfully. When he reached her, he knelt. Prince. Before a village girl. The world fell into stunned silence. His confession shook the earth. Amara, he said softly, voice trembling. I came back, because I cannot take another breath without telling you the truth. She stared at him, tears burning her eyes. He continued. I didn't come to this village to deceive anyone. I came because my soul was tired of living a life full of people who saw only my crown, never my heart. He placed his hand on his chest. But when I met you, I felt peace for the first time. You laughed with me. You spoke to me like I mattered as a man, not as royalty. Amara swallowed hard. He took a deep breath. I hid who I was because I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew the truth, you would treat me like everyone else. He shook his head slowly. But in trying to protect my heart, I broke yours. A tear slipped down his cheek. I am sorry, Amara. More than words can say. The villagers murmured softly. Some wiped their eyes. Even the stubborn elders nodded slowly. Amara finally speaks. Amara stepped closer. Her voice was quiet, but every word trembled with emotion. I didn't fall in love with a prince, Kelechi. I fell in love with a man who carried fish nets, who laughed when he slipped in the water, who spoke with humility. Her eyes sparkled with tears. But you should have trusted me. I would never have loved you because of your crown. Kelechi bowed his head. I know. That is why I am here. Not as a prince, but as a man standing before the woman he loves. He looked up at her. Let me earn your trust. Let me earn your heart again. Her answer. The moment the village cheered. Amara stared at him. Silence settled. And she extended her hand. Gently, slowly, lovingly. Kelechi's eyes widened. She spoke in a soft whisper. Next time, don't hide from me. I want to love all of you, truth and flaws. He rose to his feet, took her hand, and pulled her into an embrace that made the entire village gasp in joy. Children jumped and clapped. Women ululated. Men beat their chests in celebration. Even Equim grumbled. Ah, love dawn finally win. The royal wedding of a lifetime. Weeks later, Amara entered the Golden Palace not as a stranger, but as the future queen. The coronation doubled as a wedding ceremony. The palace grounds overflowed with villagers and royals alike. Traditional drums thundered. Elephants paraded. Royal dancers twirled. And Kelechi stood at the altar. His eyes fixed only on her. When Amara arrived in her radiant attire, the entire kingdom erupted with joy. The prince had found his true love. Not in a golden palace. Not in a royal banquet. But on the shores of an ordinary village. Epilogue. A king who remembered love. Years later, Kelechi ruled with gentleness, honesty and compassion. The people often said, "He is the king who listens. He is the king who understands the hearts of ordinary people. He is the king who found love before finding the throne." And whenever he walked the palace gardens with Amara by his side, he whispered, "Thank you for choosing me before the crown." She smiled and replied, "And thank you for finally choosing the truth." And so they ruled, not with power, but with love.